Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Rawkode Live. I'm your host, Rawkode. Today we're going to be taking a look at Policy Reporter. It is an open source software for hooking up the policy reports from Kyverno to other pieces of software to your monitoring systems so that you can get better visibility into the policy violations and audits within your cluster. Before we get started, there's just a little bit of housekeeping. So first, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and click the bell. This just means that you will get notifications on future episodes of Rawkode Live, as well as helping other people discover this content as well. There's also a Discord server. Feel free to join in there and bring all of your questions. We are active pretty much round the clock at the moment. So, even if I'm not streaming live, there's still lots to learn and share with other people. And lastly, I want to thank my employer, Equinix Metal. They provide the time and resources that I get to invest in this show and produce cloud native learning materials so that we can all learn together. So thank you very much, Equinix Metal. Feel free to check it out. There is a code there for $50 US. This is around 100 hours of compute of bare metal cloud. Lots of fun to be had. Enjoy it wisely. Okay, so we're going to take a look at Policy Reporter, and today I am joined by its creator, Frank Jogeleit. Hey Frank, how are you?
Hey everyone, thanks, fine, and you?
Yes, I'm very well. I'm very excited to kind of take a look at Policy Reporter today, and I'm really happy that you were able to join me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Do you want to just start with a little bit of an introduction to yourself, and then we'll talk about Policy Reporter just after?
Sure, I'm Frank Jogeleit in German. Um, Frank J in the communities because it's much easier to say. How I say, I'm from Germany, from the near of Dresden. I'm working as software developer for Move Elevator. We are a company creating custom applications for our clients, mainly with PHP, Vue.js, and the old good web stack. And I started with Kubernetes and the cloud stuff for a year, and I really like the community. It's very cool to work with other people. And so I'm today part of the Falco community as well as Kyverno. And I'm in the Rawkode chat every day, as well as the CNCN show.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. So today we're taking a look at Policy Reporter. I was going to say your latest open source project, but I don't know how many of these you just have lying around. But Policy Reporter is a really cool project that we've been talking about a lot on a Discord server, and you're shipping updates so fast that it's just amazing to watch that evolve over time. But why don't we take it back a little bit and you just tell us what is the primary responsibility of your project, Policy Reporter?
The main goal is to get a better visibility of what happens with your Kyverno policies. So I use Kyverno to enforce more best practices, but it's really hard to enforce everything because developers stuck. They have not much experience with Kubernetes. They don't know how to do things. So I thought it's better to audit these violations and have in the later point in time a look at it. But this was not that easy because you only have this CLI, CRD commands to see what's going wrong. Then it's across the complete cluster with many different namespaces. And it was not that easy. And so I thought it's a good idea to create a tool for this. I'm part of a Falco community. In Falco, we have a tool called Falco Sidekick and Falco Sidekick UI. It's very similar. You have a UI where your violations from Falco are displayed. You have a table to filter, sort, and so on. And I translate this into Kyverno. And so Policy Reporter was born.
Awesome. So I think that's a really common story that I hear when I'm speaking to people in the cloud native ecosystem is that they want to adopt tools like Kyverno and Open Policy Agent and all of these best practices, but at the same time, the platform teams and the SRE teams want their developers to be as productive as possible, especially when learning all of these new technologies as well. So moving and having policies run in audit mode rather than force mode, I think is extremely common. But I think what you articulated well there is that you've got to do something with those audit logs. And that's where Policy Reporter comes in. It gives us the ability to hook it up to our existing tooling like Prometheus and Loki. And we'll take a look at this on the hands-on bit. But just making sure that they're not lost in the abyss, the noise, or the migrations, or all those other things that we have surrounding us all the time. So very, very cool. We have a question now from Carlos. Carlos is curious of how does this compare to other solutions that are pros and cons? Is there anything similar to Policy Reporter out there at the moment?
I don't know other tools for Kyverno especially. I don't know if there is anything else in the OPA community. I'm not sure about the products from Nirmata, the company behind Kyverno. I think if so, the main difference would be that it's not a platform or any byte solution. It's an open source tool to install to debug your policies. You can try what is affected, and if you don't need it anymore because you man a production environment, you can remove it easily. So yeah, it's a small application, I think.
Okay, let's touch on one of other Carlos's questions just before we kind of move on a little bit here. So Carlos says they're a little confused. Is it Falco versus Kyverno? I'm going to assume you would run both, but do you want to just give me your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm running both. Security in Kubernetes has more than one layer. You have runtime things, you have manifest validation, and yeah, Falco is security at runtime. It tracks if you SSH in a node, if you change a file in a ads directory or in the root system. It affects all this time on runtime, and yeah, you can also alert, track or alert and other applications. But Kyverno is for static validation, I think. So more you if you have resources defined in your manifest, if you don't use latest, all this things, it's related to pod security policies where you try to remove host paths, host ports, these things. So it's another level of security, I think. It's best differentiation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think Falco fits into that space, like you said, runtime security. It's monitoring syscalls on the kernel and alerting you when things are doing things that you maybe don't want them to do. Kyverno and Open Policy Agent on the other side, they're taking a look more at the declaration or the manifest that we're applying to our cluster and making sure that they conform to the constraints that we apply as well. And we'll see that. We've got, well, not a cluster. I have a Docker for Mac, which has got a Kubernetes API where I have deployed Kyverno. I think what we can do to start with is maybe just take a look at the pod security policy replacement policies from Kyverno. I can't remember if it ships with a default report, but maybe we can look at that and actually see the problem, right? Is that Kyverno does expose some of this information, but not in a way that is consumable by other tooling. And then we can move into policy reporter. How's that sound to you, Frank?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Awesome. All right, let's get my screen share up. So for anyone who wants to follow along or is watching this not in real time, you can find Policy Reporter Frank's GitHub username /policy-reporter. Nice. Now what have I got prepared up front? Very, very little. I have Docker for Mac running. I have deployed Kyverno. I've got Prometheus deployed as per Frank's request. Oh no, my node explorer is broken. Although that probably wouldn't work in Docker for Mac, so that's okay. Which gives us a Prometheus operator, a Grafana, and a Prometheus instance. So pretty much all the tools that we want to kind of hook into and show what's happening. So what's the best way for someone new to policy reporter to get started? Do you want me to pop open the docs, or do you want to just go off script? What are you thinking?
I think the easiest start is with the policy reporter UI. You add the repo as available as Helm chart, so it's very easy to install it. Then you have this basic installation, but this is only the metrics for Grafana, so you need an existing monitoring to use this. So the way easier part would be the second installation, where you enable the UI and have a standalone UI where you can start from.
Okay, so I can just copy and paste this helm install command that sets the value to true for the UI deployment, and I'm still going to get the Prometheus exposition. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Prometheus metrics are default, so they always enabled. With the UI enabled, you get a second application, the UI, so it's not backed into the policy reporter. It's a standalone application which works over a REST API with the policy reporter, and you can access the UI over a port forward.
All right, perfect. Okay, so I've added your Helm repository. I'm now doing the policy reporter installation with the UI enabled, and then I'm going to copy and paste the port forward, which I'm assuming is just going to take me straight in to the UI if I knew how to copy and paste. There we go.
Yeah.
It's still okay. So it's just pulling some images right now. We'll give that just a few seconds, and we'll get started. Let's see. Why are you pending? Oh no, there we go. Just me being impatient. So this is port forward into 8082. Ta-da! Easy.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it when things are just, Helm repository add, Helm install, like job is done. There you go. There's your nice UI. All looking material and shiny. Very, very cool.
Helm chart reduce effort to get started, because it has all this default URLs, ports, and so on. So it's all configured for you behind. And you see your first violations for the monitoring pods, because they has host paths and host namespace configured, which is not allowed with the PSP pod security policies, so to say.
Okay, so in this UI, what I'm seeing is just how many policy violations we have. We've got a kind of graph here, so I'm assuming if we fix any of these, if we can fix any of them, we'll start to see this drop. We've got failing cluster policies. What's the difference here? Is that
the dashboard is overlog of failing resources, so you don't see any passes because it's a short introduction. The main the only difference besides policy report and the cluster policy report is that the cluster policy report is only for resources that are cluster scoped, like namespaces. So they have its own CRD in Kyverno and also in the policy report standard. And so it's a different.
Okay, so should I click on policy reports? I click on one of these things. What do you want to look at?
If you click on any of these labels, it's only a filter for the table. So you have a search field, so you can easily filter for a specific policy or rule or severity if supported. And I think you can go to the policy reports with some more detailed views only for the policy report CRD. So at first you don't see any violations because you have a default filter for a single policy at the beginning. but you can open this select field, and you should have an option for all policies. So you can define what you looking for, if you would like to see any violations, or for a single policy, or for a set of policies. And if you like, you have also an optional filter on the right side for only a namespace. So you can also recreate the view of a single report for a single namespace if you like. It's on you.
I think I prefer looking at the sea of green passes rather than my 3 failing policies. But at least we can see here what's happening and how the policies are being used and consumed, which is, I think, just exposing more of this information in a visual way is really important for people to understand what is happening and just get more comfortable using tools like this.
Yeah. The standard for policy reports has 2 more status codes, and they also have error and warning. But Kyverno at this time only has passed and failed violations. If our future tools also use the CRD, like Kubebench, and they have this additional status codes, you will also see additional tables for these other status codes. So the UI hide automatically all tables and charts without any value.
Okay. So I just want to understand then, like, we've deployed Policy Reporter and the UI. They're 2 separate deployments, 2 separate pieces of software. Is the Policy Reporter UI just querying Kubernetes API for the Kyverno reports, or is it going through Policy Reporter in the middle? Like, how does this actually work?
It's working with the Policy Reporter together. Policy Reporter fetches over the Kubernetes API the CRDs and convert them in the one side into Prometheus metrics, and the other side in a custom structure, which also available as REST API. So the Policy Reporter has a REST API, which you can also use with your own tools. The UI is not required. They are open and also available endpoint. And the UI use this REST API from the Policy Reporter Policy Reporter, and has a proxy backend, because if you port forward your Policy Reporter UI, you need access to the API it's fetching from. So you can only fetch from the backend from the Policy Reporter UI, and so you need some API in the middle. But this API fetches the information from the Policy Reporter and forward it to the UI itself.
All right, very cool. We have a question from Walid, who is asking, can I monitor the audited policies only? And then a little bit of a follow-up is like, audit events not enforced. Maybe we could just explain the difference between Kyverno policies with enforce mode and audit mode, and what that actually means as well. You want to dive into that?
Sure. Audit events don't affect you if you apply any manifest. It's creating this policy report in the background, and you can access this information when anything violates. If you have an enforce mode, it blocks you from applying this manifest. So the kubectl will return an error with the message from your policy. And you have to fix the manifest before you can apply it to a cluster. Kyverno offers configuration in your policies, the background. Background is used to validate existing resources. When you apply a new policy in an enforce mode, you enforce new manifests. It has no is used for existing resources. So with the background enabled, it also scans existing resources and creates a report for it. So if you apply an enforce policy with the background scan enabled, you also get a report for this policy, and you also see the result for these policies in the UI. So you can also track the violations for existing resources.
Okay. Slight segue then. I'm assuming you run this in your production Kubernetes environment?
Yeah, how I say, I'm using Kubernetes in my free time as
Ah,
a hobby project. We introduced Kubernetes in my company a few weeks ago and created our first playground Kubernetes. But we don't have any production applications running on cloud services.
not yet. That day is coming, I'm
Not
sure.
yet. Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just, I guess, well, we can kind of speak hypothetically then. But I'm going to assume that it's okay to have policies that are failing and be aware of it, rather than having policies not enforced at all. Like I can imagine it, especially maybe in my own in production environments, is that is the goal to have zero failing policies, or is it just to keep that number going down? Do you got any opinions on that?
I don't think that you have to fix all issues. Sometimes you can't really fix it because maybe it's an application you installed with Helm and you don't have access to this configuration. Maybe you have tools they need this host path, for example,
Yeah.
to work with. Longhorn as storage application or fleet or something like this. So you can't fix everything. I use it as best practices. So it's good if they pass, but it's not required. And maybe you create a policy to get some information about your environment. Maybe you want to know which pods running with the latest image. So you can create a policy, you can set to audit mode, apply it, see the result, and remove it instantly. So it's also a tool to get any information you want from your cluster.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Is there anything else you want to look at in the UI before we move on to other bits and pieces?
You can click on the logs, but I don't know if there not.
Yeah, my local
informations yet.
cluster may not really have much going on.
Yeah, it's the logs are coming when you deploy violations after the UI started. So you started the UI right now, so there was no new workload, so it didn't work. But we can also see this maybe later on when we did some stuff.
Yeah. So we've got some default policies installed. I'm sure we can definitely violate a couple of them and then see those logs coming in. Why don't we take a look? We've got all of this deployed to the cluster with Prometheus and Grafana. So can we walk through the process and the steps involved for maybe building out my own little dashboard here?
Yeah, to getting started with Grafana.
Yeah, so you said that policy reporter running in the cluster takes all of the policy reports from Kyverno and it produces Prometheus metrics. So I'm assuming the first thing we want to do is make sure that those are being consumed by the Prometheus and our Kubernetes environment.
Yes. Yeah, you can, when you're running with the Prometheus operator, you can use the optional monitoring subchart of Policy Reporter. It provides you a service monitor, a CRD for this operator to scrape the metrics. And it provides also configurable dashboards for Grafana, if you like. So running the installed version of your operator, you have to, I don't know if it's good to do it over the CLI. Maybe a values YAML is better in this case because we have to configure a few things.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so where's that first one? So we enabled UI.enabled. That's all so far. So why don't we do, I think I created a YAML. There we go. Oh, that's the Kyverno YAML.
It's
okay.
Kyverno, yeah.
All right, so UI enabled. True. This is all we've done so far, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. what this other command that you've got here from the documentation is saying is that we can turn on monitoring.enabled and then provide a namespace.
Yeah. You need to enable the monitoring. That's the enabled part. The namespace, when you're using this Prometheus operator, you have to install the config maps, which include the configuration for the Grafana dashboards in the same namespace as Grafana. So that's why you need to declare a namespace where the Grafana lives in.
Okay, so where is my... I think it's just in monitoring. Yeah. So
yeah, you define it as monitoring.
And
I
forgot. Look, there. It's happy now.
Nice.
Is there anything else we should tweak now before we do an upgrade, just so that we have it available?
Yeah, you have to add a service monitor label. I think it was right over the command when you see the description with monitoring service monitor.labels.
Yep.
Yeah, this part. So I'm using Ranger, and Ranger has an included pre-configured monitoring system, which is built on top of the Prometheus operator. In this case, you don't set this label because Prometheus looks over all namespaces. In this installation, in this custom installation, you need to declare a label for the service monitor. So the Prometheus resource scrapes the service monitor. That's why we need to define it in this case.
Okay, so we need to define service monitor. Okay, so what label is this looking for?
I think the default one would be release and the name of your...
Should I just describe the Prometheus operator? Is that?
Yeah, you need to describe the Prometheus resource. So not the pod, but the Prometheus CRD.
Yes. Okay. So let's do it. Get Prometheus. Describe Prometheus, this one, and there should be a label on here that we want to target.
Yes, service monitor selector on the bottom.
Got it. Okay, I'm assuming this is maybe just a map then, rather than a list. Does a case matter?
I'm not sure, but I think it's lowercase. In my installation, I used lowercase.
Let's just pop up. Yeah, lowercase. Weird that it's capitalized. Must be something to do with that output. I'm going to ignore it for now. But yeah, let's go with lowercase. So our values file for the policy reporter deployment has monitor and enable.
Service monitor should be under monitoring, not on the same.
Thanks. Yeah. See, it's always good to have a second set of eyes on these things. Okay. Monitor is enabled. We've pointed it to the correct namespace, and we've added the service monitor from the Prometheus CRD. That means I should be able to do a helm upgrade. Policy reporter. We don't need any of the sets nor the create thingy, but I will need the namespace one day. So, how's that look?
Do you need to set the values, YAML?
Yes. All right. Yeah, I think that was okay.
I think this should work. I hope it will work.
We're both just ringing with confidence here, but we've got revision 2, so I'm going to take that as a win. So I'm assuming in our policy reporter namespace, we should see... Oh, we see... Nothing.
I don't see that it should update the policy reporter because it doesn't change it. You only apply more resources for the operator.
That's right, because we're deploying a service monitor. And maybe not in the, oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So
And
should we pop open the Prometheus and see if we have any metrics?
you can show it in Prometheus or later on in Grafana.
Yeah, let's take a look
But
at the Prometheus first, and then we'll see if we can get. Well, we will. We're confident we will get Grafana hooked up. But I always like to test at the source first. So, in theory, if we go to targets, I think that's okay. Do we have any policy? Hey, look at that.
Yeah, nice.
Which means we should have access to graph. There we go. So I'm not sure what to search for.
Policy. Yeah, policy report results, summary.
Is that going to execute? And we have loads of metrics. Awesome.
Yeah.
But of course, we do not encourage people to use the Prometheus baked in UI. This is where Grafana really shines. So.
That's right, yeah.
All right. You mentioned. Sorry, on you go. What?
No, you can continue.
Okay. I was just going to say, I mean, you mentioned something really cool earlier on in the episode is that there are pre-canned dashboards that are shipped for us. So let's, can I just port forward to Grafana and we walk through the process of getting those hooked up?
Sure, yeah.
All right. Let's see. Port forward. 3000. Okay, we have Grafana.
Nice.
So I'm going to assume my dashboard isn't here already, right?
They should already available.
All right. Hey, Grafana. Give it a refresh, see if it helps. Oh, it does not appear happy with me at all, does it? Now I have to decide, am I being impatient or is it broken? Let's try one more time. Strange. Okay. So we have our dashboard home.
Yeah, you should click home on the, and there you already see a policy reporter label. So you can also, in your list, in the first entry, you can click on it and you should get 3 dashboards. So they all very similar to the dashboards you saw in the UI. So they provide similar informations, but in a better scope in Grafana.
So is that something that the Prometheus, the Kube Prometheus project is doing? How did you get those Grafana dashboards into my Grafana?
The operator supports config maps to define dashboards. And what I did is I built these dashboards in my own Grafana and export them. I replace some informations with dynamic variables you can configure in the Helm chart. So as I said, you have some status codes like warning and error. They are not supported yet. So, but I would like to support the CRD complete. So I add them to the dashboards, but I added Helm values to disable them or hide them in this case. And the subchart includes this config maps and add them to your Grafana namespace. And so they picked up from Grafana and available.
That's a nice touch. I like that. All right, what one do you want to pop open first then?
Yeah, I think you will see the most. You can the third one, the policy reports. So that's it's complete overview as you saw in the UI. You have all tables currently, also without items. You can you should see tables with results, but maybe not.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, if I was, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if I was better at my job here, then I would have deployed all of this much earlier, so we had richer data to capture. But miraculously, it just popped right in there, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, our Grafana did take 3 attempts to load the homepage, so something tells me maybe there's something going on with the communication back to my Docker for Mac. But doesn't matter.
It's possible.
Okay, so we can see how many policies we have failing. We got the cluster policies. These two very similar to what were available in the policy reporter UI. We then actually have some time series here where we're seeing the count of failing policies over time grouped by the policy that had the failure, which is a very nice one to chart. I could imagine in real production clusters where there's a vast array of policies being audited and enforced, this single graph alone is going to be really, really interesting for anybody, I would imagine.
Yeah, and that's a graph that I can't provide in the policy reporter UI, because then I need the complete history of all violations. So that's, I think,
this is classic time series now. Like you need a TSDB for it. You need it to have it available. That makes a lot of sense. And then we have a table just down the bottom. I think it's just showing pretty much the same thing as the graph. And we have no cluster policies, so that's to be expected. Should we pop open the other two?
You can also see the policy report details. Yeah, cluster policy don't show anything because we don't have any cluster policy. So I think we can skip it.
Yep. We got the namespace breakdown, and we got another little time series graph. And I think these aren't loading just because of whatever's going on with my network.
Yeah, and in this dashboard, you also see currently the status and the errors status chart without any value. But if you dive more into the configuration purpose of this monitoring chart, you would be you could be disable this parts of the dashboard if you don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this alone is the main reason why everybody running Kyverno in their clusters just needs to have policy reporter available to. Like, I think it's really safe to say every operational team out there in the world probably has a Grafana instance running in their cluster with Prometheus. Like, they want, again, I'm not going to put words in everybody's mouth. I want to use the same tooling across my stack, and I think this is just really super cool.
Yeah.
Because once I have it all here and I have my dashboards, the entire team has visibility into it. But I also have the ability to then build my alerting on top of it. There may be some policies that, although I have an audit mode due to migration issues, probably want to notify somebody quickly. I mean, I can imagine there are some that I would deem probably a security risk. Although maybe I should just enforce them. I don't know. I'll talk myself out of that one at some time.
Yeah, for alerting and notification purposes, the second main part of the policy reporter, which was the initial idea behind it, to send notifications when any violations happen to tools like Loki, Elasticsearch. It also has support for Microsoft Teams and Slack. So yeah, only with Policy Reporter and any chat client you use, you can also send notifications to it.
Okay, so that can send notifications to Slack and Discord, I guess any HTTP endpoint, really, as long as I just connect it up.
Yeah, and if your chat client is not available yet, you can at any time create an issue or develop it yourself and create a PR for it.
Yeah, I love that. Pull request welcome always. Like,
yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to show if I've forgotten anything?
One part which we don't cover because it's only related to this notification things are priorities. So for Loki, I created a priority to violations because the Kyverno policies pass or fail. So if you have a failed one, maybe you differentiate between that's not that important, that's very important, that is a disaster. And so I integrated a mechanism to define how important your policy is. Per default, it creates the priority of warning for a policy, but you have the possibility also over the Helm chart to create a mapping between a policy name and the priority. And so you can switch between an info policy, warning policy, a critical policy. You have a special key for a default. So if you like to default all policies to info, you can also do that with one configuration and configure how you like it. And in Loki, you have different colors and your alerting tools will stick on these priorities.
Oh, nice. Very cool feature.
I opened an issue and also a PR to Kyverno for configure severity to policies, which is a CRD way currently to define between low, medium, and high. And if this feature will be available in Kyverno, it uses this information also to map your priority between info, warning, and critical. So you get two ways, the policy reporter way and the more native policy Kyverno way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you said you've opened that issue, the conversations are happening, and maybe that's something we'll see in a future release of Kyverno, right?
Yeah, it's scheduled for 136, I think.
Sweet, awesome. So what's next for Policy Reporter then? Do you have any other, features, ideas bouncing around in your head that you're going to bring to us soon?
At first, I have a look if any other tools will implement the CRDs, like Kubebench I already mentioned, and if so, have a look if it worked as expected or if there are any differences I have to change in the policy reporter to also work with these tools. The second part will be more Kyverno specific. Currently, Kyverno works on its own metrics with more informations I can't provide because they Kyverno internal. And if they will be available, I want to integrate them into the UI as a module, I think. So you don't only have the CRD global metrics, but also more detailed one for specific tools that work with the CRDs. But this depends on the metrics for Kyverno and when they are available and so on. But I will have a look, an eye on it. So.
Nice. All right. Is there anything else you want to cover before I let you get back to your day?
I would say thank you also to the Rawkode community because the idea was born also in an episode with you and the Kyverno team. I really thank the Kyverno community for supporting me by answer questions, help me with policies and so on. And also Adrian and the CNCN community who also helped me a lot and promoted my small first version of Reporter in its show.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about the communities that we're working with here, like Cloud Native and Kubernetes and policies and Kyverno. Like we all just want each other to succeed, and the amount of support across the board, I think, is phenomenal, and always welcome
Yeah.
to see. And I'll just say thank you to you. You're the one that has invested your time and energy into giving us better tooling to get those really critical metrics out of Kyverno into as tools we're familiar with, and you're even going above and beyond to provide like your own UI and stuff like that. So thank you very much, Frank. It's a really cool
Yeah.
project, and I hope a lot more people will check it out and make their Kyverno lives that little bit better.
I hope so. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Well, you have a great day, Frank. I'll speak to you in the Discord. Everyone else, I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Bye. Bye.